feeling so good every morning, feeling so good from the inside out, better than your freaking morning would without. Waking the worlds up physically, mentally, spiritually, and then physically again. World peace through individual inner peace and strength. Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Pow Go On. I'm your host, Herbie, and today is Wednesday, September 1st, 2021. Can you believe it? We're already here. We're going to talk about good energy. Every day here on Pow Go On, we're not just leaving you with some empty words, we're not just talking, but we got some actual body magic tricks, instructions for you today. There's a new way to live this world. What do you mean there's a new way to live this world? Well, if you would, with me, please pretend that there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. Just pretend that there's a lit candle, like a flickering candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out, and leave your swallowing muscles alone as you do so, and observe your sense of self. And as our awareness is shifting, is that not a new superpower, a new way to live the world? We'll discuss good energy and how to go about actually doing it with actual actionable advice. We'll be right back. Welcome back to another episode of Pow Go On, where we feel so great from the inside out, using some of these body magic tricks, using some real actionable stuff to shift your awareness and to actually help you relax for real. Because what can't be benefited by relaxing for real, in a real way? You know, when people are like, hey, relax. Like, how do you relax, right? Like, how do you relax? Well, if we had some common language, and if we had some common language for it, there could possibly be some good out of that. So check this out. Like, pretend with me that there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out, like a flickering candle, and you're not thinking about inhaling or exhaling. And leave the swallowing muscles alone as you do so. And observe your sense of self as you do so. Always. We're thinking about living the world in a new way by stretching the body in different ways. By using the body in new ways to allow the awareness to funnel into the proper channels properly, and maybe understand each other a little bit better, much better. How? Well, if we're all using the same channels of authenticity, if we're all using the same channels of ideas of how to unleash this inner version of you, which no one has any control over, right? That's like a mystery to all of us. But if we're all using the same channels, if we're all opening the same doors, we can see more clearly and more immediately what people mean by what they do, right? If we're all aligned on the same idea of where to place our body and where to align our bodies to feel better, to feel a better breath throughout life. You know, there are times where you could tell someone's not really they're not really in the moment. They're distracted with what they're afraid might happen, or they're distracted with something else that's going on in their head. They're distracted with a hypothetical future. They're distracted with maybe a shame of what they just said. Maybe they didn't mean to say what they said in the way that they said it to you. So now in this moment when you guys are conversing, they're still thinking about that. How hard is it for us to discuss and learn each other and understand each other like this, right? How hard is it for us to understand and learn each other whenever anything distracts us or causes us to fixate on it, which a lot of things do, right? Especially if you're high, or especially if you're drunk or something, like you tend to fixate on things, right? So how hard is it for us to communicate with people on basic things when we don't even know if they're fixating on something else, or if they're really in this new moment, or if they're still feeling ashamed about something they said? Maybe they didn't want to say it that way and they want to clear that up, but the conversation's still going. So at that point, how do you even know that when you're conversing with them, that the words that you're saying are being received into their head in the way that you want to, if they're being distracted? And so when you leave that interaction, how happy are you with that interaction? Now are you just like uncertain about how it went? Just thinking about it, and then that distracts you from your next conversation, and then your next conversation, and then your next conversation. How do we understand each other better? We have to wash ourselves out, not just physically, but mentally too. Here on Warfare Wednesday, we're going to talk about good energy. How we wash ourselves of that bad energy mentally. And of course, the entire time physically. Physically, we got you. Place a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. And leave your swallowing muscles alone. And observe your sense of self. You ever see like singers and stuff do like lip trills? If you would with me, try doing a lip trill. Why? It's good for breathing. Why? It engages specific muscles that are frontwards of what you would normally be engaging to breathe, like their lips. But most people are engaging their neck or something, or their shoulders when they're breathing, or back of their neck. But when we lip trill, we're tightening some more of the muscles on the front of the face, which are actually required to breathe. We'll talk more about that in the future, but for now, if you would with me, as we are taking care of the physical aspect, and we'll take care of the mental aspect in a little bit, but we need to cleanse ourselves. We need to be able to purify ourselves. Like, we need to be able to cleanse and like regulate ourselves whenever we get nervous, whenever we get depressed, whenever we get fixated, whenever we feel shame. Because all those are normal human expressions. Shame, fear, confusion, anger, all these are normal human expressions, but in our current society, we too often believe that those are linked with those are like scars on who you are, as opposed to just conditions that you were going through at the time. Hiding your perfect version of you, right? Like when you're depressed, or when you're confused, or when you're fixated on shame, or when you're worried about the future, you are this filtered version of you. You are this rule-inhibited version of you. It's still you, but the true you is not really shining out, right? So we need to be able to cleanse ourselves and like regulate ourselves mentally and physically at any moment. Why? Because when you're conversing with people, sometimes we do have moments where we have shame, we have anger, and that lets out. We too often associate that with being us, so we feel shame about what we're doing instead of being able to regulate, let that moment wash over us as a human being, and acknowledge that that was a moment, but that's not you. But too often these days we associate it with that's been you, that outburst of anger that just happened, that's you, and not a you that was being tormented by something that would make you feel trapped so that you would feel anger. We too often associate that outburst of anger or that outburst of statement just to feel better. We too often associate with being ourselves. When we can when we can regulate ourselves in that moment and be more of ourselves that is unmarred by fear of like shame, of like confusion and anger, which are all normal human things, but we can have shame about those, and we can mistakenly integrate those into ourselves, thinking that we are those things, that we are that anger, that we are that confusion, as opposed to Herbie, who was confused at the time, or Herbie, who was angry at the time. And why might we do that? Why might we feel like it's part of us? Well, because we can't get rid of it, right? It sticks with us once that feeling hits us. Why? Because we cannot regulate. We must be able to regulate physically, or the breathing, and then mentally, so that you even encourage yourself to do it. Otherwise, if you don't order yourself mentally, regulate yourself mentally, then you're not going to want to order yourself physically, because you won't have the confidence to do it. You won't see why you should do it. You won't logically understand. You won't logically see why you should be giving good energy, why you are worth that good energy. But you are worth that good energy. And how do you know that? Well, place a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. and to leave your swallowing muscles alone as you do so, as you're just paying attention to that lit candle. Whenever in distress, let the candle rest, as Dom would say. Remember that there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. Remember, it's important that you're trying to not put it out. You're not trying to blow it out. You're just trying to let it rest. You're trying to not put it out. There's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. And leave your swallowing muscles alone as you do so. Getting lip trills. All sorts of things, all sorts of body things, but you are worth it. Your body is getting ordered. Hello, body. But now your mind needs to be ordered. There's nothing wrong with what you're going through. Wherever you are. There is a war outside. Wherever you are. There's also a war inside. Wherever you are. As you are pretending that there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. Just let it rest. And leave your swallowing muscles alone. And say it with me. Observe your sense of self. Even if it's just in your head. Again, one more time. You want to say it with me in your head even. Observe your sense of self. As you remember the candle. Always. You're trying to not put out. Good energy can come from an understanding of human nature. It can come from logic. How can good energy come from logic? Well, what brings energy down? Bad energy, right? But if we use our own logic to apply what we know about ourselves to everybody else, we can attract and pay attention to good energy intentionally and bring around good energy intentionally using logic. How? Well, we don't take anything personally, logically, because you know what the human condition is like. You know that we go through anger, we go through confusion, we go through shame, and then we go through shame again for having those angers and confusion because we eventually feel like it is us because we cannot wash it away from us. Well, we can wash those away from us. You don't need to feel shame over those things because those are things that happens to human beings. Shame, confusion, anger, lust, love, pride. Anger again, and then shame for those things. Those are all normal human things that we can let pass by because we can accept that those are human things. Those are what humans do, and what we also try to do is overcome, and we found that, baby. Let's put a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. And leave your swallowing muscles all the way alone as you do so. And observe your sense of self because things happen to you. Those feelings, those anger. No reason to feel shame for going through it is hard enough. For not being able to wash it away is hard enough. The shame keeps it there. But people only respond to you with the way that you want them to respond to you. So if you have no shame about what you're doing, they will see that you're just being a human being. However, if you have shame about what you're doing, you are now telling them that you know something that they do not. That you have motives that they cannot see. However, you have to have no shame if you are willing to take the blunt of the force, the brute force, the conflict head on without shame. Well, aren't you just being human, and can't everyone understand that? Logically. As you're not trying to hurt nobody, you're just being human. Going after what you want. You have needs. Needs you should not be ashamed for. The ashamedness will bring the bad energy. Because the ashamedness suggests that you don't understand something about yourself and human beings, which is that we make mistakes and we have needs. We'll be right back, guys. Please place a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. And leave your swallowing muscles alone. Let's get ready for Warfare Wednesday, everybody. Let's suit up. We'll be right back. Feeling so good from the inside out. Better than your morning would feel without. Welcome back, everybody. Talking about good energy. Logically, as everything here on Pal Go On, we are feeling so great from the inside out. We're feeling better. Objectively. Objectively feeling better. Well, how's that even possible? Well, with the help of your own objective body. As we are remembering that the weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front and not the back. Logically, your body is an object. We're feeling so good from the inside out, objectively, by learning more about ourselves. Here on Pal Go On for another Warfare Wednesday. It is 5:51 a.m. on Wednesday, September 1st, 2021. How are you doing out there? Have you checked your sense of self out there? Are you ready to put on some spiritual mithril armor today? To feel so good from the inside out. Are you ready? On Warfare Wednesday, as we prep you, as you, yes, you, we prep you to face the world. How do we do that? Well, first of all, we remind you that today and every day, it's just you in that body of yours, and that's a good thing. The whole world as you know it is just you. How do you even know that I exist? This podcast could just be a simulation in your brain. You are all that exists. You are all that exists. You are the way people treat you. You are the people who you love. You are the way people view you. You are the actions that you perform to other people. You tell people how to treat you. You are all there is. You are all there is. You are all that you can confirm in this world is you. So should you want treatment differently from the world? Should you want to be able to handle the world differently? What would you look at? The world or you? It's you, baby. You are this amazing soldier in this world of ours. So today on Warfare Wednesday, on Pal Go On, I want to ask you, have you been thinking about your life like a video game lately? Like we're all playing the same game, but maybe we've been holding the controller wrong. Like we've been staying awake and we've all been interacting throughout life, and we've all been learning things in school, getting degrees, getting jobs, making friends, having kids, all of that while possibly holding the controller wrong. While possibly holding your controller wrong. If your body is this video game character going throughout life and things are happening to you, wouldn't it be important to be able to receive all that information while holding the controller right, so you can make the right decisions, so you can even experience the world properly? So you can even experience the world in a way that everyone else can relate to. How do we make sure everyone can relate to that? Well, by making sure our awareness is on the same things. Why does it matter that our awareness is on the same things? Well, our body takes on particular positions when our awareness is on certain things. And our body directly reflects how we are experiencing the moment, how well we are breathing, and how well we are breathing is directly affecting how well we are able to receive the music that we're listening to, the sounds around us, whether or not they're going to startle us or whether or not they're going to amuse us. The way our body is aligns the way the world orients itself into the body. The way the body is aligned physically can often directly affect the way that that person is experiencing that moment mentally. So how do we connect? How do we connect with good energy? Well, first we make sure we're understanding the same energy. How do we make sure we're understanding the same energy? Placing our awareness, our superpower, right? Our superpower of awareness, that thing that allows you to tell your left arm from your right arm without even opening your eyes. Your superpower of awareness, which allows you to use your sight, to use your vision to gaze at the trees, while simultaneously your awareness could be on your hearing of your friends speaking in the other room. Your awareness is this superpower of yours, able to be moved around, shifted, changing shape, broken apart, and then put back together again like taffy. your awareness. So how do we make sure that everyone's experiencing the same energy or understanding the same energy? We put their awareness on the same parts of their body so that we're all holding the controller the same way, at least. And how do we hold this controller? Well, engage the muscles that are engaged when we pretend that there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. That you're trying to let rest. You're not trying to put out this candle. But it's there. Always. No matter if you're doing a backflip, front flip, or underwater. The candle's always there. You're trying to not put it out. And you're leaving your swallowing muscles alone as you do so. Not the most intuitive way to breathe, as I'm telling you, actually don't even think about breathing, right? Not the most intuitive way to breathe, don't breathe at all. But simply pretend that there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. And to leave the swallowing muscles alone. Observing the sense of self. Isn't it possible that we latched on to the wrong idea of breathing because we're looking at other people and how to breathe? We're looking at them, but our body knows how to breathe by feeling, right? Itself. Babies have been breathing. We all breathe when we're not thinking about it consciously. Our body knows how to breathe from the inside out. It understands, but when we look at the outside world, because we're so smart, we see the way people breathe, we look at physically how they breathe, and we use our own intellect to kind of infer what the body might need to do to get that proper breath. But it's always an outside looking in. It's always a shallow imitation of actually using your inside feelings of alignment, your inside kinesthesia, what you can actually feel to breathe, as opposed to what you can just see on the outside of someone's rib cage is moving. You're getting a very shallow idea of this 3D feeling of breathing, which is granted to us when we simply place our focus on the candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. To leave the swallowing muscles alone as you do so. It's just a candle flickering, you're not trying to put it out. And you're leaving your swallowing muscles alone as you do so. You amazing superpowered creature, you, with your awareness able to shift to the candle and integrate that with feeling that you do not sit on your legs or that you leave your swallowing muscles alone. And always with a candle that you're trying to rest. Let rest. Good energy. Good energy. Logically. As the world will try to tell you that there's all this bad energy, how do we get good energy with logic? Well, knowing where the bad energy comes from. And its intent, is it malicious? Well, we know from ourselves that it is not malicious. How do we find good energy in the world? Well, just like everything on Padawan, we look inwards first. We look at ourselves and apply that outwards. Logically, if everyone is like us, which is true, we also have the same inner structure and the same dignity and the same wish for life and the same wish to be able to overcome suffering. Logically, if we're all the same, then we can look inwards at the self to understand the world. Is that not true? So how do we see change in the world? Well, we see change in our inner world first, right? Because we are the world. How do we see change in the world, right? We have to see change in our inner world. Because that's all there is, right? How do we see better in the world? Well, we don't know anything about the world, right? What we know about the world is what we know about ourselves and what we can apply that to the world. That's the only way we can understand the world, right? So how do we see better energy in the world? Well, we have to create better energy in ourselves, not just so that we can resonate it to other people, but so that it becomes easier to see out in the real world because you have a real life example right there underneath your nose. And isn't that much easier to apply to the rest of the world as you have a deep 3D understanding of this good trait, this good energy that you see in yourself now? Isn't it much easier to excavate that from the archives and apply it to the world when it's right there at the forefront every time? Why? Because you've been doing it. This good energy. And how have you been doing that good energy? Well, let's make ourselves feel great first, so that we can apply that understanding to the rest of the world, and we can see all the great in the rest of the world. Because there's so much right here, right beneath our eyes, right behind our eyes, that we've created, that we are generating. There's so much there. There's so much raw material for us to apply to the rest of the world in language. So let's start by pretending that there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out, and leave your swallowing muscles alone as you do so. Always observing the sense of self. Always observing the sense of self. If you would, please say it with me. Pretend that there is a candle in front of the lips, and say it with me. You're trying to not put it out. Say it with me. Let it rest. And say it with me. Leave your swallowing muscles alone. One more time. Say it with me. Leave your swallowing muscles alone. And just observe your sense of self as you do so. We've all been walking in this world together this entire time, but maybe we've been holding the controller wrong, or maybe looking at the screen upside down. Who knows what we've been doing, but we've all been holding it differently. We've all been experiencing maybe different games. Let's get on the same page. Let's spread that good energy. Like all things in Padawan, like all things in life, we're looking at ourselves first and applying that to the rest of the world. The most efficient way to understand, the best way to spread good energy. Start with the self. We'll be right back after this short break. Please pretend there's a candle that you're trying to not put out, and leave your swallowing muscles all the way alone. Observe your sense of self. Good energy starts with the self. Feeling so good from the inside out. Better than your morning would feel without. Waking the worlds up physically, mentally, spiritually, and then physically again. Why? To feel better? Objectively. Welcome back to the second half of the show on Warfare Wednesday. It is September 1st, Warfare Wednesday, 2021. Talking about good energy today. So let's start with the self. As life is pretty much about learning yourself. In a narcissistic way, like, oh my god, I'm the best. Nah, not really, but just because everything in life that happens to you, you are also participating in. There is a give and take with life. It takes two to tango. And so there's not just the world that the self sees, but always the self that the world sees. So what's the best way to make sure that we get or pay attention to what we want to in life, or are able to muster the energy towards whatever we want in life? Well, we look at the self. What do you want to do in life? Why do you want to do those things? If your answer was, I don't know, is it possible that we are all just looking for a way to be happy in life? Right? What does it mean to be happy? It means something different for everybody. Does it? Or is there a way that we can get it under a larger, a smaller common denominator? Is there a way that we can fit some of those things all into under one umbrella of what makes people happy? Why might we do that? Why would it be valuable to say that, okay, everybody finds happiness in the same way? It might hurt to think that way. To say, well, some people find happiness in this, some people find happiness in that. Is there perhaps a benefit from finding a more general formula that could apply to what humans find in happiness? Why might we do that? Well, maybe to help each other achieve happiness easier, as there might be common language instead of dividing language about what we all want as human beings. Maybe there is something unifying about human beings. Maybe that is what makes us happy. If you answered, I don't know what I want to do, maybe what makes you happy is not any state in particular, but the behavior or the assurance that you can handle anytime you do become sad or distressed or there is suffering. Does that not bring about a happiness, a peacefulness, a peaceful contentness? Maybe not in staying happy forever, because that's impossible for anybody, but maybe having the security that anytime anything that comes along that you might have to struggle with, you can overcome that with confidence. Does that not bring about a feeling of happiness? Why do we get jobs? Why do we get families? Why do we do all those things? Why do we spread good vibes? Why do we spread good energy? Well, don't those assure that people will stay around, whether it's be a family or having a job? If you have a family or have a job, does that assure that you can have people or have money to be able to overcome life's sufferings, whether that be loneliness or not having enough food or not having any people around you to help you, not having anyone to support you, not having the money to go where you want when you are feeling sad or bored? Without a job, without a family, how are you going to be able to assure that if you end up with emotional suffering that you'll be able to deal with it? How can you be sure that you'll have the money to deal with it? How can you be sure that you'll have the friends around or the family around to deal with it? So that might be a good reason to spread around good energy, to look for a job, to want a family, because we are all trying to make sure that whenever suffering or sadness or depression or anxiety or struggles come throughout life, we all just want to be sure that we can handle it. Isn't that what having a job does? Isn't that what having a family does? Isn't that what having kids does? Isn't that what having parents around does? Isn't that what being around people you love does? Assures that when life comes your way, whether that be good or bad, whether that be physical or emotional, there are people around to support you, that you have a job or money to support you in those times of need. You have a community to support you in those times of need. So So maybe it's not so silly that we're all looking for a job or all looking to make a family, because we're all trying to get happiness, which comes in the form of being able to overcome struggles and suffering when they come in your life, because we can't predict those. So maybe a certain kind of happiness comes from knowing that we can deal with those things. And isn't that what having a family provides you? Isn't that what having a job provides you? That security. Security from what? Security from not being able to deal with suffering, whatever that might be. Oftentimes it's in the form of food. Oftentimes it's in the form of loneliness. How about physical weakness? We often need people around us. And how do we ensure those things? Well, having a family, having money to support a family, having money to incentivize people to be around you, being smart with your money, being smart at your job, being proud at your job so that people want to be around you. Why? Because being around someone like that enables them to learn to deal with suffering in their lives. You see what I'm saying here? It's a video game. It's a big video game. We're all just trying to help each other. We're all learning from each other. The best way to go about it is by holding this controller properly, so that we can ensure that when we get upset, we're not getting upset at ourselves for not being able to coordinate ourselves in the game, or getting upset at our performance in the game and not our ability to even do what we think we want to do. You know what I'm saying? You know how frustrating it is to play like a game, to play something new, and like you don't even know the controls. You're very new to the controls. You're very fresh to the game, the rules. And so when you get upset, are you getting upset at yourself for not being good at the game? Or are you getting upset at yourself for fighting the game because you can't even play the game yet? Is your performance at the game what you're unsatisfied with? Or the fact that you don't even feel like you're playing the game to what you feel is authentic in your inner experience? Because you're battling the game controls instead of the contents of the game so far. Isn't that what we're doing in life when we are not pretending that there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out? And to leave your swallowing muscles alone as you observe your sense of self. How certain are you that you're unsatisfied with your performance in the game, or are you unsatisfied with your familiarity with the rules of the game at all? With the ability to hold this controller? We all know how frustrating it is to be in a game, a new game, and to be measured on performance of the inner contents of the game, but you yourself are still struggling with understanding the basic mechanics or coordinating with the basic mechanics of the game, because sometimes it just takes time. You gotta separate the learning from the doing, right? You can't be measured on how well you're doing if you're still learning to do. We are all improving over time, but there's a threshold for most things in which you're not even doing that thing yet. Are we all holding the controller wrong? And then getting upset that we're not playing the game to our utmost potential? Well, of course, if you're holding the controller upside down, then of course you're getting upset. But are you getting upset at how good you are at the game, or how good you are at playing those messed up controls? In game design, or in any kind of game, you don't want the players fighting the game. You want the players fighting the other players, or you want the players fighting the objectives of the game, but you don't want them fighting with the ability to interact with the game. And didn't we mess up our ability to interact with our game by forgetting what it feels like to place the weight of the body down the front of the spine and into the rainbow arches at all the times? And remember, not allowing the weight to go down into one tailbone. The weight does not belong there. Your body does not want to deliver your weight into that tailbone. Look at all those delicate nerves, those thick nerves about the size of your finger, your index finger, or your pinky, as they jut out from your tailbone. Imagine all the pressure being applied there. You're going to be squishing on those nerves and destroying your body's ability, or hindering your body's ability to feel itself and to communicate with itself. So to know to relax, or to know to feel better, or to know to allow certain parts of the body's weight to be delivered into the bones, so that your viscera and your muscles and your veins and your nerves can feel relief. How does that happen? Well, by ordering the proper alignment of our bodies, knowing that we do not place the weight of the body into the tailbone, but rather allowing the weight to divide into these rainbow arches and into the sitting surfaces that you're sitting on. And those rainbow arches are part of your pelvic bone. And how does that feel for yourself? How does that feel for you changing your idea of placing the weight onto the back of the spine, the spiny portion of the spine, which is not the weight-bearing portion? How does it feel for you? Now testing the idea, and if you don't like it, you can always go back, but testing the idea of allowing the weight to be going down the front of the spine at all times. Never into the back bony spiny portion of the spine, but the front, larger in volume portion of the spine, which has discs in between them which deliver weight into the next vertebrae, the next vertebrae, next vertebrae, but always the front of the spine. And how does that feel for you? How do we generate and become aware of and spread good energy intentionally and logically? Well, we see logically where bad energy comes from. We don't know what the good energy will look like, because that's the beauty of it. It's like free. It is freedom itself, which is so beautiful because it is so unpredictable, yet right, yet understandable. And not confusing ourselves with improper information, like thinking that the weight goes into this tailbone, which provides less freedom of the body. How do we provide this good energy? Well, we see where the bad energy is coming from, and we correct that. Again, we don't know what the good energy is going to look like. That's the beauty of it, is that it is like freedom itself, but we can see what creates bad energy, which is humans holding themselves down with either mentally or physically, mentally chaotic or physically chaotic understandings of themselves. Whether that be, oh, I should have shame, like mentally, I'm like, oh, I should have shame for this depression or this confusion or this anger that I was accidentally showing in front of them. So we could be mentally screwed up and mentally chaotic, thinking that there's something wrong with us for having those human things happen to us. We could be mentally incorrect, mentally chaotic, and thinking that forgiveness is not a normal part of the human experience to grow. That could be mentally chaotic. And we could be physically chaotic by thinking that we place our weight of the body into the tailbone and not into the rainbow arches or the front of the spine. By thinking that we put our weight into the back of the spine, we could be physically disoriented. And by having the incorrect idea of human beings, we could be mentally disoriented, not allow ourselves to forgive ourselves. And we'll be right back after this short break. Feeling so good from the inside out. better than your freaking morning would feel without. Welcome to the last portion of today's episode of Pow Go On. For Warfare Wednesday, September 1st, 2021. We're talking about good energy. How to spread, how to be acknowledging and how to be aware of good energy and how to spread it. When we don't even know what it looks like, how do we spread it? Isn't that the beauty of it? Is that we don't know what it looks like. It is forever unpredictable. This freaking good energy stuff, right? Doesn't it become bad energy when it starts becoming predictable? The nature of good energy itself is so synonymous with freedom. The nature of good energy is so synonymous with freedom in the sense that it is so unpredictable, so desirable, and so unpredictable. So how do we create more of it if it's so unpredictable? Well, we see what prevents that and stop that. What prevents us from providing good energy? Well, feeling bad on the inside. What prevents us from seeing good energy in the world? Well, not having good energy within to have any to relate to the world. When we have good energy from within, we have the raw ingredients right in front of our eyes to apply to the rest of the world, to understand the rest of the world with a good energy, with a life-loving energy. We have to start within. It sounds like a platitude. It sounds like an everyday cliche to say start with yourself, but in a literal sense, when you start with yourself, you have the raw materials right at your hand to be able to understand the building blocks of the world in the way that you yourself want, which is good energy. So how do we provide this good energy when it is random, or not random, but how do we provide this good energy when it is unpredictable and so free, yet we want it so much? Well, we look at what prevents it and order those. What prevents this good energy? Feeling good from the inside. What prevents this good energy? Having improper misconceptions about your internal representation. What prevents this good energy? Assuming the wrong thing about your body. Assuming that you might place the weight into the tailbone. Assuming about your body and not being open to the changes that might happen when we order our insides properly. When we order our internal representation of ourselves properly, we are able to allow ourselves to feel better from the inside out in a literal sense. As our bodies do have a way to breathe, there is a specific mechanism in which they are to breathe. So should we have a chaotic internal representation, one that is far from the truth, but when our body wants to do this thing, aka relax, because your body and your brain is so smart, it's going to do whatever it thinks it's constructed like. So if you have a misconception about your internal representation, guess what you're not being able to give to your body? Good energy. So how do we create and generate this good energy? Well, by creating and generating a proper idea of ourselves internally so that our body can rest when it needs to rest and regulate when it needs to regulate. Feel in the moment when it needs to feel in the moment. Not feel shame over being a human being, because that is what a human being does. Because what else does a human being do? Balance and breathe by placing weight into the weight-bearing portion of the spine, which is the front. And then into the rainbow arches. Remember, you do not sit on your legs. Remember, do not allow the weight to go into the singular tailbone, but rather, boom, bow outwards equally through the pelvic bone, through the pelvis, and then down into these sit bones, which are also still part of the pelvis, but these two distinct sit bones in which are hitting the sitting surface. So if you thought that you sat onto your sitting surface with one point, you were already, like if you thought that you sat on your sitting surface with your tailbone, that is already, you'd be like, oh man, I've been going through that life like that. No, that is already one gigantic boon for you. One gigantic payout, one gigantic treasure chest for you immediately, right when you join the game. You get this gigantic payout, you get this gigantic reward simply by rearranging your arrangement, rearranging your internal representation of yourself to the proper alignment of knowing that your weight is separate. Your weight divides all the way up here, boom, before it even gets to the tailbone, boom, and then into these rainbow arches where your tailbone ends up just floating. Same thing with your legs. You do not sit on your legs. How much bad energy were we creating within ourselves as every time we try to sit down, which is which is what we associate with relaxing. Every time you sit down, your body never really got to relax because all the weight that was supposed to be being delivered into the pelvic bone, and then having your viscera and having your intestines and stomach and liver and all that stuff feel more free as the weight of your body is now being held by the ones who are supposed to be responsible, which is your bones, and all your guts and stuff can then free float, feel so free. And how does that feel for you? Are you able to regulate that way? Are you able to feel more in the moment that way, to remind yourself that whatever you're ashamed about, there's nothing to be ashamed of? As we are all human beings failing forward, we are all only doing what we know, what we know, what we know. If you knew better, you would do better. So get rid of this idea of this, oh, I free will, I'm such a bad person, I did this and this and that and this and that. I have shame because I didn't talk to this and blah, 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 blah. You don't really. Because if your awareness was on this tailbone thing, for example, if your body's alignment was improper that way, what your body was receiving about the world could have been totally off. It could have been totally affected by this negative feeling inside your body that you were projecting onto other things, or projecting onto yourself, even worse. Thinking that it was you, instead of this version of you that was just trying to deal with the rules that it had to deal with, which was that it was not allowed to place weight into this rainbow arches, because in your head the rules were that you had to place weight into this tailbone. Well, if those are the rules, how great is your body going to feel when this tailbone and the tightness there is dragging all your guts down, holding your diaphragm there, and so you don't feel relaxed? But then who are you when you place the weight of the body into the front of the spine and let the rainbow arches take the weight and allow your guts to relax? Who are you then? What choices do you make then? Is that not you? Is that not better energy? Do we not get better energy through logic, by ordering our inside world, by ordering our thoughts, as well as ourselves physically? So if you would, please, pretend with me that there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. It's just flickering there. You're just letting it rest. And leave your swallowing muscles alone as you do so today, always allowing these words to go in one ear and out the other. Are you allowing yourself to please one more time with me in the first podcast in 3D? Please pretend with me that there is a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. It's just flickering there. And you're trying to not put it out. Trying to not put it out. And to leave your swallowing muscles alone as you do so, and just observe your sense of self. We don't know what's going to come out of this good energy. Perhaps good energy is just the absence of bad energy. Wouldn't that be nice, so that everything is just effortless now? You don't even have to do anything for good energy. Just stop all the bad energy and watch the good energy drag your body as it does, right? Good energy at a concert, good energy when there's something you're looking forward to, good energy to that movie you're looking forward to. Doesn't it just drag you? Doesn't it take you before you even know you want to go? Do we need to try to give good energy, or do we simply need to stop the bad energy? Isn't good energy already always flowing? Isn't it always already in motion? And aren't we ourselves freaking movers? Good energy starts with us. See it in yourself first. You got the raw materials. So let's please pretend that there is a candle in front of the lips. Wherever you are, whether you are joining us from near or afar, whether you are in the morning or at a bar, thank you for coming through today. I'm your host, Herbie, and this has been Pal Go On Warfare Wednesday, suiting you up to deal with this crazy world. Please pretend that there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. And to leave your swallowing muscles alone, whether you are with your friends or you're all alone. Please, one more time, pretend that there's a candle in front of us that you're trying to not put out. To leave your swallowing muscles alone as you do so. There's nothing to be ashamed of. You are a human being, always failing forward. You can only do what you know, and you only know what you know at the time. If this is new information to you now, then it's new information to you now. best time to start is now. As we're starting to create good energy within ourselves so we can see it everywhere else. Seems so easy. We'll see you tomorrow, guys, on the Truth Hurts Day on Padawan. My name is Herbie. Front of the shins. Make sure you're feeling it from the shins today. Keep the front of the shins into your awareness at all times. Not the back of the shins, not those fleshy calves. They cannot support your weight, but put the weight of the body on the front of the shins, which we might have been scared of if you rode a bike once upon a time like I did. But in actuality, you want to place the weight of the body on the front of the shins. And always pretend there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. And to leave your swallowing muscles alone. Be so safe out there. Big love. Cheers. Candle, we'll see you guys next time.